Okay, so here we are with another self-assessment, and this is the self-assessment for the speaking task number 3. This is going to be a little different than the speaking task number 1 and 2 self-assessment. There's different things you need to include in your response, and that's what we've talked about. That's what we've talked about in the last videos, or if you're reading the book, that's what you've seen for the last, 10 or 15 pages is how to answer task number 3. Now, so these are the criteria that you need to make sure that you have, make sure that you include, and make sure you do well. Now, remember, you want to definitely do a self-assessment every time because you're actively engaged in the learning. The things you have to include in the speaking become deeper in your mind the more that you think about it, okay? The more you self-assess after, the better you're going to remember what you have to do for each task. So make sure you do this after every single practice that you do. Okay, so it's really important to do. I include these self-assessments for a reason, right? I include them because I know that that's the best way, or that's one great way to retain a lot of this information. The TOEFL is like a new world, it's got a lot of different things in it. It's hard to keep all that stuff in your mind at one time, right? So this is designed to help you. Here, if you look at the questions, let me go over them with you a little bit, and so you can have an idea of what you need to include. And this is kind of like a review as well of what we just learned, okay, for task number 3. So if you remember, you read a short passage, it's some kind of announcement, then you listen to 2 students talk and they react to the announcement, and then you have some time to prepare, and then you speak, right? So here, did I write down the announcement of the reading and the 2 reasons for support? In the reading passage, they have some type of announcement, and then they give 2 reasons why it's usually a change, right? And they're giving 2 reasons why they changed something. If you remember, we can't just have an opinion, we can't just do something in America, we need to have a reason for it. We have to be able to support our decisions with evidence, with reasons, okay? So make sure you find that in the reading. Number 2, did my notes from the reading prepare me for the listening? Yeah, there's exercises in the back where you can guess what, in the back of the book, is what I mean. In the back of the book, there's some listening prediction exercises, and those are designed to get you to prepare and guess and, again, actively think about what's going to come in the listening, because it's going to be connected to something that was in the reading. And usually it's some kind of change, of course, and usually people don't like change, right? So a lot of times it's going to be negative. And yeah, so keep that in mind before you listen, okay? Make sure you do that. And ask yourself, did your notes prepare you for the listening? Number 3, did I understand most of the listening conversation and note all the important points? Yeah, listening's one of the hardest things for students to do, but I think, this conversation, it's kind of, it's short, and you get a reading to prepare you for the listening, so I think this is one of the easier one of the easier tasks for listening in the TOEFL test, so hopefully you get good at that. Did my notes prepare me? Did I understand? Yeah, so number 4, did I use my notes to help me prepare and speak? Yeah, make sure that your notes are helpful, of course. The reason we do notes and we have the structure of the notes is because you need to answer in a certain way. You need to say the change, and then you need to say the people's opinions about the change, right? So make sure your notes help you in your response. You should be able to use some of your notes or a lot of your notes in your response. Number 5, did I answer the question completely in time? Did I look at the clock 3 to 4 times to monitor my progress? This is definitely important to look at the clock and time management when you're preparing for the test. On the test itself, you're looking at a computer screen the whole time, and the screen has the time, so it's really hard to not look at the time when you're actually taking the test. But yeah, make sure you're very aware of time and that you manage your response in a way that you have enough time to finish up and wrap things up with a conclusion and connect back to the topic. Really important, right? And moving on to number 7, did you speak mostly about the listening passage in one person's opinion? So of course, you need to include some information from the reading, but really the listening passage is where you're going to get a better score if you can report a lot of information from the listening. And one thing that they're looking for is that you state what one person feels. Sometimes both speakers give their opinion, but really there's usually just one person who gives their opinion, and if you remember, that person will probably disagree with the announcement. So make sure you listen for that, and make sure that you say that when you eventually do your speaking response. Okay. And number 7, did I speak without too many pauses, vocal fillers, or repetitions? Those are the yeah, okay, right. I do them a lot. Everybody does them a lot. Just try to minimize them. You really don't want to have more than 3. And, if you have 4 or 5, it's okay, but try to keep it to about 3 or less. And again, the advice I usually give is if you have a lot of vocal fillers, pause. Take your time instead of using a vocal filler. Number 8, what's something I did well? What's something I didn't do well? Number 9, and number 10, try to think of a plan of how I can improve. Yeah, okay. So, and that's the same as before. Use this study self-assessment every time you practice task number 3, and you'll see that you'll become much more aware of what you need to include and what you need to practice, what your weak points are and what your strengths are.